At the close of the 2019 legislative special session, there was a collective sigh of relief that lawmakers and the governor managed to pass the state's new 2-year budget. In the wake of that accomplishment, a plan to provide emergency insulin to those who can't afford it did not make it through. Joining me now is physician and Senator Scott Jensen. So glad you could be here today.
Thank you, Shannon. It's a pleasure to be here.
Following the legislative session, you and 4 of your Republican colleagues offered a proposal via the opinion page of the Star Tribune that would get insulin to those who need it in an emergency situation. What was your proposal?
Basically, we piggybacked on some of the discussions that had taken place. Senator Wickland had dropped a bill in January that I was a co-author on. That did not get a hearing in the Senate HHS committee. So that made it difficult for us to, if you will, get up to speed. Then, toward the very end of the session, Senator Benson entertained pulling a piece of that bill onto her omnibus bill in regards to an emergency fill. But the big piece of that bill, the insulin assistance program for emergency situations, that got left behind. It had been supported, but it got left behind. What our editorial said is, okay, in the end we were told by Governor Walz and Senate Majority Leader Loehrke and Speaker of the House Hortman that no amendments would be accepted. You put the omnibus bills on the floor, you talk about them, you discuss them, you debate them, you vote them up or down, but no amendments. And so we were told that was what we needed to do. That was problematic for us because we knew there was real aspirational value in that amendment that came up at 3 in the morning. But we also knew that it had never been sliced and diced, it had never been vetted. And so what we were saying is, this can be done. There are good ideas here. But what we need to focus on is eligibility criteria. This bill, whatever we do, has to help the people in need. And the amendment at 3 o'clock in the morning had pushed away some of the people that would need help. It needed to be sustainable. Going and sort of pinging the manufacturer and saying, hey, by the way, you're going to pay the whole bill. That's just asking to end up in court. That's not going to be a sustainable program. And lastly, we need to identify a robust network of pharmacies that would be there at 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon or 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning to give insulin to those people desperate in need of it. So we were saying, we can do this. We should do this. Let's do it now with a bright light shining on it and not let the chaos at the end of the session stop the conversation.
So the bill that did pass the House, and that was the amendment, the Alex Smith Emergency Insulin Act, would have levied a tax on insulin makers that would have funded this. Do you support that idea in general, or do you think that providing insulin can be funded another way?
If we're going to say that we want the people who profit from insulin sales to pay the ticket for the solution, then we cannot go simply to manufacturers, because the distributors make money, insurance plans make money, PBMs make money, pharmacies make money. I don't think you can isolate one link in the supply chain and say, too bad for you, you're paying the whole bill. Now, I'm not a big pharma guy. Pharmaceutical companies are making plenty of money. But if we really want to be sustainable and thoughtful, we have this thing called the Healthcare Access Fund. Representative Rod Hamilton put that forward as a potential solution. Every one of the Democrats in the House voted that down. Clearly, we haven't had a chance to identify the common ground, explore it, and from that common ground, build a good bill that does what we want. Save lives for those people who are absolutely dependent on insulin.
We've spoken more than once on this program about the problem of skyrocketing drug prices. According to the Journal of the American Medical Association, insulin costs have nearly tripled from 2002 to 2013. What are the factors that are driving this huge cost increase?
I'm sure I'm going to miss a couple factors, but if I had to speak to 3 of them, I would say 1, the manufacturers of insulin really know how to market. They can make a very small incremental change to extend their patent. They can put a TV ad on in the middle of a football game, and all of a sudden you swear that if you just go get that kind of insulin instead of this kind, the world will turn rosy and your A1C measurements will be right where you want them. So pharmaceutical manufacturers do hold some real responsibility. But I think legislators do too, because we've let them run wild. They've been doing this for some time and we haven't done anything until this year. At least we passed this pharmacy benefit manager bill, which is a new chapter of law and says, no, no, no. Business as usual isn't good enough. You're going to be exposed to the light of day. No more spread pricing, clawback behind a cloak of secrecy. But I think physicians have to own part of this too. We have bought in to the fact that, oh, that insulin there, that isn't as good. We'll go to the latest and greatest, the more expensive one. There are cheaper insulins available. Physicians aren't getting on the phone. If you call some of the pharmacies and say, is there a generic insulin? Or is there a cheaper insulin? Or is there an insulin in a vial instead of a pen? I mean, the fact of the matter is Walmart pharmacies have insulin vials with 1,000 units in them for sale for 25 to 50 bucks. Now, you might not have a fancy pen. You might have to draw it up the old-fashioned way. But you're alive, and it's costing you less than 50 bucks a month. So physicians have to own this as well. And I think, frankly, physicians have to own a lot of it because we should be working with our patients. It's not enough just to write a script and say, goodbye, patient, we'll see you in 3 months.
But are there enough hours in the day for physicians to have that kind of responsibility?
Absolutely. I can do that conversation in 1 minute with you. I can say, Bill, are you going to be able to get your insulin? Where are you getting it? Is there a hardship here? Because if there is, let's do this. It takes a minute. We can get it done.
According to the American Diabetes Association, insulin is a unique medication because there is not an alternative therapy. Because it is life-sustaining, is there a special urgency for affordability for this particular drug?
Yes, it is a unique drug. There's no question, though, that we have drugs that have similar capabilities. We have incretins, and they function like insulin. But yes, at the end of the day, insulin is a unique biologic molecule. It's a big molecule. It's hard to make exactly, and it is life or death in many situations. So it is unique. But you could say the same thing about some of the more life-saving epileptic drugs, the EpiPen for the peanut allergy kids, the incredible inhalers we have for people with emphysema and asthma that can be life-sustaining. So I think we start with insulin, but as a physician and as a senator, I'm going to be pushing to expand that conversation to what do we do for the other folks too who are dependent on a single life-sustaining medication.
Are you concerned at all about the politicization of this issue? I know with the opioid epidemic, there was a faction that really wanted the opioid manufacturers to pay and pay dearly for their part in the problem. With an insulin tax, is there a faction that's looking for the same kind of thing when really what's important is just that the people who need these drugs get them?
We're supposed to legislate thoughtfully. We are not a punitive body. That was one of the concerns about the opiate bill is, are we creating a precedent for every time we identify a problem, we try to find some sort of daddy sugar bucks or whatever you want to say, and say, you're paying the bill for this? That's why I respected so much Senator Rosen's perspective, saying, well, if we end up getting a large settlement through this whole opiate thing, then we can back off this pool of dollars we're asking the manufacturers and the distributors to participate in. And that makes sense. We need to be very careful here. If every time we see a problem, we want to find a culprit that we can say, you're responsible, we're not going to be doing our best work.
Quickly before we go, if someone is rationing their insulin or worried about their ability to afford the next dose of medication that they need, what should they do?
They should call their doctor, their clinic, and if they can't get through, they should call their pharmacy and say, I've got my insulin from you folks before. I am desperate. My sugars are rising. I have no insulin. Can you help me? Most pharmacies would be saying, yes, we can. And oftentimes the pharmacist will have a hotline to the physician and will get something done. But for heaven's sakes, don't let your sugars rise to 200 and then 300 and 350. In those situations, you need to be attended by medical professionals.
Senator Scott Jensen, thank you.
You're welcome.